They call her Corvette, and she belongs to the highway just for the sheer and simple joy of driving, for the open road and the country byway, for Mr. and Mrs. America in a carefree mood.
The year is 1954. It's been about close to 10 years since the end of World War II. Things are looking up. Everyone is feeling very optimistic. Babies are booming. Industries are booming. You are launching or seeing the launch of so many new products that you could never imagine. Cars with fins, heralding the space age. Appliances that you could never imagine, the world of tomorrow. In this backdrop, a former radio repairman, a 45-year-old guy, is about to launch his company's second product. The first product was reasonably successful, but they said it needed some work. So he, together with a prolific musician, redesigned and created a new product. Little do they know that this product that they will launch in 1954 will not only become the most popular, the most successful product in their category, in their industry, but it will probably become one of the most successful products, if not the shape that almost everyone in the world recognizes, one of the icons of the 20th century, and it'll be something that will never be repeated again. And that's what I'm going to tell you about in today's video. So hi everyone, welcome back to the Ministry of Guitar. My name is Utkarsh Mohan. I'm coming to you from Singapore. As always, if you like what I'm doing, please do like, subscribe and share. It really, really helps. So I was scrolling through my Instagram yesterday and you guys know me. I like my PRSs, I like my Gibsons. I'm not really a Fender guy, but popping up yesterday was good old Buddy Holly on my Instagram, and this was in celebration of the 70th anniversary of the Fender Strat. And not that I keep track of the birthdays of different guitars, but the Fender Strat, I think, is something that I do want to talk about. I don't know whether 70 is a particularly critical birthday, but it is a birthday nonetheless. So I think this was a good opportunity for me to talk about why, of all the guitars, of all the musical instruments, of all tools of the trade, of any trade that might be, why I think the Fender Strat is in a place of its own. There are two or three parts to it. One part of it is the intersection of technology and the electric guitar in particular with the cultural contours of the 20th century. I think there have been products that have shaped, that have defined culture during different periods of history. And the electric guitar and the 20th century, or rather the latter half of the 20th century, will always be interconnected. So I want to talk a little bit about that and why it's so unique. The second thing I want to talk about is the unique way in which a particular shape, a particular product has come to define an industry. It is not usual. Like if you think about cars, of course, with the Model T, they started, Ford introduced the assembly line. The Beetle is iconic, but if you think about the shape of a car, if you think about what a car is, you don't think about a Beetle or a Ford Model T, as iconic as those cars were. Cars change in shape every day. Same could be true for many other things. Could be true for your laptops, your computers, so many other things. So it is very unusual to have a situation where a product shape is a shape that has become so iconic that has almost transcended the category and is also indicative of things beyond the category, beyond the industry itself. So there's that's the Fender Strat shape. You could say the same thing about the Martin shape as well, but we'll talk about that some other time. The third thing I want to talk about is my own experience with the Fender Strat. I'm not the biggest fan of Fender Strats as a player, but I do appreciate them. So I'll tell you a little bit about my own journey. Now to get to the first part, the electric guitar. I have said this many times on previous videos as well, so my apologies if I tend to sound repetitive, but electric guitar is not really about, I really don't think it's about making music. I don't really think it is about making music, but not only about making music. I don't think it's about being a tool. I really think the electric guitar represents something much, much more visceral, much, much more human. And I think the electric guitar represents freedom. I think and it's difficult to isolate, there in history, when you study history, there are There's one line of history that says everything moves according to economic forces. There's one line of history that talks about the great man theory of history. Great men come and do things. And I'm not a historian, so don't get annoyed at me. But I'd wager there is also a third line where you could talk about technological innovations or certain products or certain non-human factors, devices perhaps, or tools that come and redefine history as well. You have the printing press, of course. You have electricity getting invented and a whole lot of stuff. So for me, the electric guitar represented the freedom that is a very, very basic human yearning that everybody feels, particularly youth, idealistic youth, as everybody is idealistic when they're younger. And the ability to express that desire for freedom in a manner that was never possible before. And even though the guitar has been around for a long time, it took the electrification of the guitar, the ability to create loud sound, the ability to make a comprehensive musical unit with a very few number of people, make a unit that could have significant reach, whether it be playing in the neighborhood, a garage band, whether it be then playing arenas, just through the power of 4 people or 3 people with the power of technology. And then there's another aspect of, men have always had the, whatever their toys, or maybe you could say their swords to try and impress women with, right? This kind of been through history. You may have had a great sword when you were a warrior. You may have had a great horse if you were if you were at a certain point in time. And you didn't really have that. Of course, you have cars. That's another aspect of it. But then I think it's no accident that the guitar is referred to as the axe, because that is your weapon. That is the weapon by which you participate in this new fight, in a rather 20th century fight. So the thing about the electric guitar is the reason why even today, when even in a work context, when people talk about somebody who's doing really well, they'll say this person is a rock star. There is just something so aspirational about the dream and the freedom the electric guitar and the rock band archetype represents. It is just exactly the expression of the human desire that, hey, all my dreams can come true and I can be somebody. That is what the electric guitar, that's what picking up an electric guitar, learning an electric guitar represents. And it is no surprise that the electric guitar, once the technology was possible, led to so many, became intertwined with culture in such an integral way, whether it be with the counterculture of the 60s, whether it be with the excess of the 80s, it is no accident. So there's that. The electric guitar is a product that is more than just a product. It is something representing youth, idealism, and freedom. There's that. Then there's the Strat itself. As I was saying earlier, most categories, you have an evolution of what the product looks like. The only exceptions I can think of perhaps is maybe jeans, where you have the original Levi's jeans, and everything since is a variation of that. And I'm sure there are other exceptions you could think of as well. But in the case of the electric guitar, if you just put a Fender Strat, that is an electric guitar, whether it be on the emoticons on your phone, whether you go into a small town in any part of the world. And I'll tell you this, right? For me, often I know that I live in a bubble. Though I'm from a developing country, India, I am living in the developed world, Singapore, and my cultural consumption is very, very much developed world. So sometimes when I want to think about, I shouldn't think the world revolves around me. How do other people think? What are people's experiences? Of course, through the nature of where I come from, I mean, my original hometown in India it's a state capital, but it's not particularly large, and there are villages outside of it. Or the places I used to go to for work when I used to work as a marketer, we used to define countries into 1, 2, and 3, where 2 was semi-urban, 1 was urban, 2 was semi-urban, and 3 was more rural. And one good part of my job was I used to delve into all the rural parts. Even if you go into a rural town in Indonesia, like I've been to, or Vietnam, or India, I know I'm talking Asia here, but that's where I have more experience. You show them a Strat, they will know, okay, that's a guitar. That's an electric guitar. It's a Strat. If you show them a BC Rich Mockingbird, I'm taking a bad example, they will know it's a guitar, but it'll not be something that elicits recognition. But it's kind of amazing how the Strat shape elicits recognition anywhere in the world. In a way, if you think about ambassadors for your country, and I'm talking to folks from the United States here, your country has some ambassadors. The electric guitar, and particularly the Strat, is a big part of it. So you should recognize that. So the Strat is a very unique case where the shape of the guitar has not changed for 70 years. And it has become super iconic. It's become, excuse me, one of the most iconic shapes in the world. You could say the Nike swoosh is iconic. Yes, I would say a lot of people would know the Nike swoosh because you have a lot of fake Nikes roaming all over the place. So there's that. But as far as products are concerned, I can't think of too many shapes that are more iconic than the Fender Strat. Of course, to guitarists, you will argue that the Les Paul is as iconic as the Strat. And I agree, to a guitarist, both are equally iconic. But to a layperson, the Strat wins by a mile. So there's that. And to the layperson outside of the Western world in particular. So there's that. I think we're a little caught up when we think of Strats. We think of, is it giving me the correct tone? Am I getting that perfect position 4? Am I getting that perfect snappiness that I want? We are very, very close to it. So sometimes we don't realize that this object of our obsession is something that is much more than an object, but a cultural phenomenon. And that's what a Strat is. And lastly, my own experience. So I started playing guitar in 2004. I started with acoustic because at that time the common wisdom that my friends told me was start with acoustic, then you can learn electric later. And what happened is one of the people in my dorm, he had a Strat copy. I have no clue which company it was a copy of, the red Strat copy. And I used to really lust after that guitar. I was like, one day I'll get an electric guitar. And the Strat was a big part of it. Now later when I went to get my first electric guitar, I did realize that the Fender Strats were all out of my budget. And at that time, I was also starting to get into Guns N' Roses, so the Les Paul suddenly came onto my radar, even though I'd never seen a Les Paul before. I had seen a Strat plenty of times, even when I had no interest in music or guitar. Through my childhood, the Strat is the electric guitar. So I knew that shape. I didn't know the Les Paul shape. But I got enamored by Slash and Guns N' Roses, so I got a Les Paul, and there's a whole story on my channel about how I'm a Les Paul player. I like single cuts. But the Strat has always been at the back of my mind. So in 2009, which was 5 years after I started playing, a friend of mine who had an American Strat was leaving and he left it with me. I did not end up loving that guitar too much. It was a Highway 1 Strat. It's very famous now due to Corey Wong, but I didn't love that guitar too much. But in the back of my mind, it was always, I think a lot of guitarists have this. It's like, I need to find the correct Strat for me. All of us think that there's a correct Strat for us, and it may not be the Strat that you have right now, which is kind of funny because the formula for a Strat is quite simple. But I think the subtle differences in neck shape and the way it sounds, the pickups, tend to make quite a big difference. So I ended up selling that Highway 1. Then I bought a Dave Murray Strat from Iron Maiden with 2 humbuckers and a single coil, HSH. That guitar, I liked it, but for me it was neither here or not there. It was not really, it was a Strat, but it sounded nothing like a Strat. It sounded like any of my humbucker guitars. And as much as I like Iron Maiden, I couldn't hold on to something just because I liked the band. So that went away. Then I bought a guitar which I thought could be the Strat for me, and it probably still is. Unfortunately, I don't have it here right now. It's in storage, unfortunately. House renovation and all that. Put a picture of it here. This guitar was just the right thing. It came to me damaged because it had fallen from the hook. Hopefully these hooks don't fall in the shop, and they gave it to me at a great discount, and it was just right because it was candy apple red. It was a 50s style Strat. It's something called a 57 hot rod, which means that it's a 50s body, 50s aesthetic, but it has a modern neck radius of 9.5 inch, slightly better frets. So that was that, and that was the perfect guitar. It was so good. I really liked it. Unfortunately, there's something in that guitar's destiny. It fell down again. One of the only guitar hook to ever fail on me was that particular guitar. It fell down again, cracked the pick guard. So what I decided then to do was do a Tony Stark on it. I replaced all the parts. When I say I, my friendly guitar tech, Goose here in Singapore of G-Works, is giving him a quick shout out. Amazing tech, luthier, makes pedals, amazing guy. He replaced all the parts for me with gold. So we got gold pickguard, anodized gold pickguard on red, just too good. We got a nice Strat style bridge. I'm forgetting which one. I think it's a Goto or something. And yeah, and now that guitar is the Strat. It is the Strat for me. I got that guitar in 2016 after disliking the Highway 1 Strat and then owning the Dave Murray Strat briefly. So I got it guitar in 2016, and 8 years on, it's still with me. I really like it. I'm not a Strat player, but there are times that I do get into a Strat mood. So that's it. That's how I found the Strat for me. And things kind of came full circle, because if you look at that particular Strat, it bears a striking resemblance, and I believe the model is inspired by David Gilmour's Strat from Pulse. But the red Strat that he plays in Pulse with the EMGs. And the Pulse Comfortably Numb solo is possibly one of my favorite pieces of music of all time. So there's that connection, which I didn't not buy the Strat because of that, but later it's one of those things that really satisfies you. So yeah, so what's your Strat story? Do you agree with me on its cultural significance? Are you instead on Team Les Paul? I am also on Team Les Paul, and think that I am overstating the importance of the Strat. Have you noticed that people, non-guitarists around you, know exactly what a Strat is? Have you noticed that you, regardless of persuasion, have an unusual attraction to the Strat? Tell me all about it. I would love to hear from you. I'll see you next time.